Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has reportedly threatened to bring down the government and force a new election amid escalating tensions over the war in Gaza. Israeli media reports that Smotrich made the remarks during a security cabinet meeting which focused on future military operations. The current coalition holds 60 seats in the 120-member Knesset, following the departure of the United Torah Judaism Party and far-right lawmaker Avi Maoz. An election would only occur if a majority votes to dissolve the government. In a later statement, Smotrich said he had lost confidence in the Prime Minister's ability and willingness to lead the military to what he described as a decisive victory. Now for this discussion, we are joined by Professor Ephraim Inbar, Senior Researcher at the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, joining us live from Jerusalem. Thank you, Professor, for joining us today. Welcome to NewsX World. Now,
My pleasure.
Thank you. So what does Bezalel Smotrich threat to dissolve this Israeli government? And then last week also we saw news coming in about the division between the military head and prime minister. What do these things reveal about the internal factors within Israel's current political and military leadership?
First of all, such threats were aired in the past. One of the parties led by Knesset member and minister Ben-Gvir left once the coalition and returned. So it's not clear if those threats will really be realized. Apart from that, the parliament is dispersing and will come back in action only in plenum, only in mid or end of October. So actually, the government will continue to serve even if they leave the coalition until that date. And if those two parties will leave the coalition and the government will not have a majority, there will be a formal dispersal of the Knesset, of the parliament. But it will take at least 3 months until new elections will be held. Meaning that the new elections will be at the beginning of 2026 instead of November 2026, which is not a big difference. So it really doesn't make such a big difference for Netanyahu if the elections will be at the earlier than scheduled.
So does this make any difference even if this opposition voice is growing? Also, we saw that Tel Aviv had a lot of demonstrators on Saturday. So this internal political instability, does it have any effect on Israel's strategy in the ongoing war with Gaza?
Of course, a government that has no majority in the Knesset, in principle, can do whatever it wants. It is probably the strongest government possible in Israeli politics. But the custom is that it cannot take decisions that are extraordinary, and maybe some parties will go to the Supreme Court of Justice to stop the government from taking actions that have not been decided yet. So this is, of course, a possibility. But the war in Gaza will continue probably as long as the Hamas is there and the hostages are not returned. So the domestic instability or the lack of a majority for the government is not really able to stop military steps by the current government.
And Professor, how could forcing a new election in Israel during such a sensitive time impact countries' diplomatic relations with other regional players? or allies who support Israel?
Everybody understands and knows that Israel is under a lot of criticism because of its decision to take over all Gaza. And this is something that has been taken into consideration. And we'll see if foreign governments will indeed do what they threaten to do. There is a great understanding and consensus in the international community that Hamas should not rule over Gaza, that the Hamas terrorist organization should be evicted of Gaza. And I don't see any other possibility of evicting Hamas apart from military action. They do not volunteer to go, and international pressure is not effective. So I really don't see an alternative if the international community really wants to stick to the goal of evicting Hamas from Gaza, but Israeli military action. Nobody else is volunteering to fight Hamas. So it's up to Israel to do it. And it is, of course, unpleasant for Israel to be criticized for trying to do what the whole international community wants. But that's life.
Thank you, Professor, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay on the region. Now, Coordinator of Government